MeMonster.
Chapter 276. The demonic dragon's eyes glistened. From its gaping mouth, an intense wave of searing heat began to rise. Grah! A roar shook the very air. A crimson flame, reminiscent of molten lava, erupted from its mouth. Halcyon, I was waiting for this. I stepped forward and extended my left hand. Black scales pierced through my skin and emerged. The radio flames scorched the goblins ahead, incinerating them completely as the fire spread down the road. I bent my knees and spread my palms. Whoosh! This hero is immune to magic. This hero is immune to physical attacks. This hero is immune to magic. This hero is immune to physical attacks. A shockwave, as if being hit by a multi-ton truck, swept over my body. An elemental breath imbued with physical force, a troublesome trait of red dragons. While my black dragon scales could mitigate some damage, they wouldn't suffice for long. Han 6-star has been afflicted with a burn. Fire resistance is decreasing. As expected. Boom! I drove my feet into the ground. The pushback stopped. The more attacks you take, the lower your resistance. While I blocked the first attack unscathed, the next ones couldn't be guaranteed. Velkist, hold the front line. I'm going to handle the dragon's head. Understood. Thwack! Velkist swung his sheathed sword upwards, sending a dozen goblins flying like pebbles. Before I dashed forward, I glanced back at Jenna, who was knocking an arrow. Jenna, you mean to snipe the ones on the verge of transforming, right? Twang! Jenna smoothly drew her bowstring. An arrow lodged into the forehead of a monster that was just about to finish shedding. No further instructions were needed. If overpowering attacks were the strategy for countering immortal types, then targeting specific evolving enemies was the way to tackle self-evolving types. Arrows from Jenna quickly sliced through the air. Thunk! Goblins squirming across the main street fell under the impact of her arrows. They wouldn't die, but their evolution would be halted. The dragon began preparing its second breath. I bent my knees, pushed off with force, and ran up the wall of a nearby building, swinging my sheathed sword as I went. Crash! Goblin bodies burst apart, splattering around. Han, these things are changing. Prioritize dealing with those mid-evolution. Leave the sniping to the archers. In addition to Jenna, there were several high-grade snipers among our raid team. What if they can't tell which ones to hit? Can't tell? There's a fierce battle on the main street. Visibility isn't great. Running up the wall, I glanced below. Pack. Pap, 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 pap. Arrows flew at rapid speed and pinpoint accuracy, reminiscent of machine gun fire. One by one, goblins fell, arrows embedded between their eyes. Jenna has a special skill that enhances her vision. But what about the other archers? At that moment, a holographic window appeared in my field of vision. The effects of Tactical Station are now applied. Facility level, max. Possessing a map of the stage. Displaying tactical screen. Various tactical tools can be summoned. Give tactical instructions to heroes with touch and drag. The Tactical tab, a tool for masters to command heroes during missions. Anything touched an icon placed to the right. Familiar hand movements followed as she navigated the menu. Modifying battle instructions. Changing the default raid strategy from kill priority to subdue priority. Changing the default archer class strategy from unrestricted fire to designated fire. Archers will now focus on selected targets. Anything closed the menu and scanned the main road on the map. She lightly tapped the evolving goblins, setting targets for sniping. Zing! Red crosses marked the goblins' entire bodies. The master's target setting, I smirked. Anything caught on. She realized that subduing was more effective than outright killing, especially when dealing with critical targets among the monsters. Anything quickly grasped the situation and issued suitable commands to the entire raid team. It was a solid decision. In Pick Me Up, commands weren't guaranteed to be followed 100%. Heroes acted on their own will. However, simply being aware of tactical instructions made a significant difference. Can you see now? I placed a hand on my ear. Anything's orders should have reached Roderick as well. It's possible. Do it. We'll follow the master's orders. Click. I ended the transmission. The dragon's claw swung right in front of me. Bang! I pushed off the wall and landed on the ground. The beast's claw swiped past overhead. This thing's also immortal. Even if I sever its head or pierce its heart, it wouldn't die. In that case, I hurled Bifrost and clenched my fist. Crackle! Dark red lightning coiled around my knuckles. The flame-infused jaws lunged to bite me. I easily evaded and thrust my right hand forward. Thud! A sound like drumming echoed. My fist pierced through scales harder than steel and crushed the organs within. Ah! Once more, I jabbed under its belly. A jab as light as a jab, but with a devastating force. Boom! The red dragon coughed up blood and staggered. My punch, compressed with the power of thousands of times gravity, packed an explosive force beyond dynamite. This should be useful. I slid under the red dragon's belly and emerged on the other side. Grasping its tail with a strength that left a handprint, I gritted my teeth. Snap! The veins in my arm stood out. Then, whoosh! The enormous 10-meter body swung in a wide arc. Whack! Whack! Thunk! Goblins caught by the dragon's body were sent flying. Grah! Thud! I lifted the dragon's tail and slammed it into the stone pavement. The ground cracked and fragments flew. That wouldn't be enough. I lifted the dragon again. Crash! 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 Like a jackhammer, I slammed the creature against the ground repeatedly. Viewer messed. Is he the Hulk or something? Believe one. He's strong, all right, beating up a red dragon like it's nothing. Creak! Creak! The beast seemed subdued. I held on to the limp dragon's tail. The weight felt just right. Chirk, chirk. I swung the dragon, knocking down goblins, screeching with fear. The mass of monsters gathered on the main street was swept away at once. Unreal. It's beyond comprehension, Jenna, aiming her bow from afar, murmured. Looks like this area's more or less secured, Velkist said, lowering his sword. Hundreds of goblins lay strewn across the main road. Orcs, lizardmen, and harpies were among them, but they were equally smashed to bits. They wouldn't resurrect anytime soon. So, how long do we keep doing this? Velkist looked up. I followed his gaze. A black rift in the sky, still dropping fragments. 3,076 level 53 corrupted goblins. Velkist nudged a goblin's head with his foot. He was right. While we managed to hold the east gate, battles were still raging elsewhere. The number of invaders continued to rise steadily. Macquarie, 5-star, has returned to the goddess's embrace. His courage will be remembered forever. Brenyal, 6-star, has returned to the goddess's embrace. Her resolve will be remembered forever. Luden, 4-star, has returned to the goddess. Deaths kept piling up. We couldn't hold on indefinitely. I spoke up. If we wait, the boss leading them will show up. The boss, you mean? Yes, we just need to take it down. Commonly called cores, they were high-ranking entities leading thousands of fragments. Warning, a core of chaos is beginning to descend. Perfect timing. Roar! Something bellowed inside the black rift. A massive, viscous hand reached out of the opening. Core of Chaos, level 322. A crisis and an opportunity. The core was a high-level monster, nearly level 300, but if we eliminated it, the fragments here would be halted. I retrieved Bifrost and brought my hand to my ear. Priya, can you hear me? Han. Magic communication had connected. I continued. Look at the sky. Do you see that grotesque giant crawling out? I see it. Shoulders and a head emerged. The creature took on the form of a colossal human. Countless worm-like entities squirmed across its exterior. We have to deal with it, but we don't kill it. We send it back to where it came from. You mean with the dimensional blade? Exactly. Can you manage it? Meet at the palace gates. Click. I cut the communication. Jenna, Velkist, I'm going to deal with that thing. Hold this place down. You're going alone? For now, someone has to stay here. I glanced sideways. Twitch. The dragon's head, which had been limp, stirred. It wasn't dead yet. How long can we hold out? The death notifications kept coming up. If I only considered the messages I'd seen, at least 20 had already fallen. If the defensive line broke, dozens or even hundreds of goblins would evolve simultaneously. Then, the highest-tier monsters would sweep in and decimate the heroes. I'll be ready, Jenna said, her face set with determination. Good. I patted Jenna and Velkist on the shoulders and turned on my heels. In one stride, I bolted down the main road toward the palace. Roar! The core's body had partially emerged. Thick, viscous fragments continued to spill from the gap between its body and the rift. 4005, level 53 corrupted goblins. The monster count had surpassed 4,000. It was only natural. Their numbers hadn't been dropping, only increasing. Beyond the city walls, they swarmed through every alley. Once the line breaks, it's over. Heroes were locked in fierce combat on the main street. At a glance, they seemed to be holding their own, but one slip in their balance and recovery would be impossible. I planted my foot firmly as I ran. Han, are you safe? At the entrance to the palace, Priya stood waiting for me. As you can see, my clothes were stained with blood and dust, but I had no wounds. Are you prepared? As much as I can be. A faint golden glow enveloped her right hand. That's good enough. Let's move. But how will we reach it? The enemy is in the sky. I tensed my back muscles. A searing, bone-splitting pain racked my body. Priya's expression froze. It wasn't a pretty sight, admittedly. A pair of dragon wings unfurled from my back. Amazing! Thanks for the compliment. With a flex of my back, the wings flapped and lifted me slightly off the ground. I held Priya in my arms. Hold tight. Understood. Whoosh! Accelerating rapidly, we shot up tens of meters into the sky. Our target was the emerging core of chaos. We won't get many chances. Don't miss it. I won't. At least she was confident. I smirked and flapped harder, climbing rapidly. Priya glanced down at the city below. The main street was packed with monsters, clashing with heroes. A chaotic battlefield of blood, swords, spears, arrows, magic, and artillery. We won't lose, she muttered to herself, as if making a vow, then looked up. The golden glow on her right hand brightened. Grant me the strength to fight through this hardship. Roar! The giant's waist emerged from the rift. Soon its full body would pass through and it would plummet to the ground. We had to finish this before that happened. 831, level 113, fragments of chaos. Shards rained down from the sky like a storm. Just one more time, Priya whispered. Dimensional blade Lusrada is awakening. A brilliant sword of light extended from her right hand. I will sever it in one stroke. Hand, bring me close to it. I pushed forward at full speed. Priya raised her radiant blade above her head, ready to strike. If this goes as planned, we could clear this stage. The rift in the sky loomed closer. Ha ha ha! The insects are resisting! A voice rang out, light and girlish, yet unnervingly sticky, like something that clung to your brain. I looked down. In the throne room of the palace, the girl standing to the left of the prince had begun to change. Her white robes tore as her body grew larger. Taunia is doomed anyway. Stop this annoying struggle and die together, insects. Crash! With a sound like shattering glass, the girl leaped into the air. And then, creak, crack, crack, crack. Danger. Ancient species, Blue Wing King, Schuttenberg, Kimaker, Elstadt.
Chapter 277. Whoosh! A sharp, high-pitched whistle, almost like the sound of wind, reverberated through the air. One of the 4 ancient dragons, the progenitor of the Schuttenberg family who wielded the power of magic, Elstadt, appeared. Its form resembled a gigantic blue bird, with wings so expansive they cast a shadow over the entire imperial palace. Each feather shimmered with a faint violet magical aura. "Vermin, I will tear you apart with my own hands." Schuttenberg flapped its colossal wings. With just a couple of beaks, the massive creature soared nearly 30 meters into the air, rapidly closing in on my location. Ha! This thing wasn't something you could classify as a mere monster or boss. It was a transcendent being. Now they weren't even trying to hide the fact that they were breaking the game's balance. "Hun, that thing?" Priya's eyes widened in shock, her voice trembling with fear. She didn't need me to explain what it was obvious. "Hold on tight." I tightened my grip around Priya and pushed forward, the fierce wind striking my body. "Do you think a mere human like you can escape me?" A low hum emanated from Schuttenberg. The creature spread its wings wide, and hundreds of magical circles appeared across the surface of its feathers. Boom! Boom, boom, boom! Schuttenberg began firing magic bullets like a machine gun, all while pursuing me with terrifying speed, its enormous body seemingly defying the laws of nature. I don't have time for this. I had practiced flying, but I wasn't fully used to it yet. At this rate, I'd be caught before I reached the crystal. Should I face it head on? No, that was impossible. Even on the ground, with all the advantages in my favor, this was the kind of opponent I'd struggle to defeat. Fighting at mid-air, and with Priya at my side, that would be suicide. A direct confrontation wasn't an option, and escaping seemed equally unlikely. Then what could I do? "What are you so worried about?" I turned to the side. Perched on my shoulder, a plump pigeon was calmly preening its feathers. "Halcyon, looks like it's my time to step in." The pigeon clacked its beak as it spoke. "I can summon my true form, but only once." "All right. I've already given you everything you need. Don't stop now, Han." With those words, the pigeon threw itself downward, falling like a stone. Crack! Crunch! Crack! Crack! Danger. Ancient species. Dragon Lord Halcyon Cyraus, level unknown. A steel-scaled dragon materialized in midair. Boom! Dozens of violet beams vanished in an instant with a single swipe of its claws. Halcyon's crimson eyes glowed as they locked on to Schuttenberg below. "Well, well, if it isn't the bird brain! You insolent wretch! Kraaah!" The sky trembled as Halcyon let out a deafening roar. Folding its wings, the black dragon dove, transforming into a living spear as it hurtled downward. Countless violet bullets slammed into Halcyon, but the dragon didn't so much as flinch. It closed the 100-meter gap in an instant and slashed with its claws. Boom! The sound of the impact was deafening. Schuttenberg's head snapped to the side as its massive body was sent hurtling through the air. Crack! Ha 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 ha! That crunch, you've always been satisfying to beat the hell out of, bird brain. I'll kill you for this, Halcyon. Go ahead and try. Schutenberg righted itself in the air, its wings spreading wide as it began preparing an enormous spell. The number of magical circles forming was exponentially greater than those it had used on me earlier, and their size filled the sky. If that spell were unleashed on the capital, it wouldn't just destroy the defenses, it would reduce everything to ash. Leave this one to me. All right. I turned my attention upward. The enormous portal was still open, and from it a giant was beginning to emerge. Priya, are you ready? Always. Good. I flapped my wings and climbed higher. Below us, thunderous shockwaves erupted as the two transcendent beings clashed. Below, chaos engulfed the battlefield. 5,769 level 53 corrupted goblins swarmed through the streets, occupying parts of the city and advancing towards the royal palace. I pushed myself to go even faster. How many casualties so far? I glanced to the side where Anything's control panel displayed the current number of injured and incapacitated heroes, a total of 103. Already a tenth of our forces had been taken out of commission. The portal drew closer. Priya took a deep breath, her right hand tightening into a fist. A sword of light extended from her grip, growing to several meters in length. If we're going to end this in one strike, we need to wait until its entire body is out, she murmured, her voice steady but tense. I nodded. The timing had to be perfect, right as the giant fully emerged from the portal. Suddenly, a piercing screech cut through the air. I pulled back sharply as a barrage of razor-sharp feathers shot past the spot I had been occupying just moments ago. 13 level 65 corrupted harpies and 3 level 73 corrupted wyverns were closing in on us. Don't let them distract you. I shielded Priya with my wings. All over my body, steel-like dragon scales began to sprout. This hero is immune to physical attacks. This hero is immune to magical attacks. This hero is immune to physical attacks. Waves of breath attacks and feather barrages struck me, but the black dragon scales absorbed the impact completely. The giant was almost fully out of the portal. Only a bit more time remained. Below us, Schutenberg and Halcyon clashed ferociously. Violet lightning and black flames filled the sky, while the burning city below roared with chaos. Heroes battled relentlessly against the endless swarm of monsters, their silhouettes illuminated by the flames. Meanwhile, debris from the portal continued to rain down, creating fresh monsters wherever it fell. It was a scene straight out of hell. How many times has this happened? I stared out at the devastation. This marked the 17th time this cycle had occurred. I clenched my teeth and looked up. Within the palace, the crown prince sat on the throne, his chin resting lazily on his hand. Our eyes met. Isn't it laughable? His voice, though soft, resonated clearly as if he were whispering in my ear. All this just to live a few decades longer? Even if you stop this particular disaster, the end result is the same. You'll all eventually end up in your graves. Humanity, too, will one day disappear. It's inevitable. I said nothing, watching him carefully.
I didn't understand that before, he continued. I wasted my time on meaningless endeavors. I cried in despair, spilled blood to rise again, only to repeat it over and over. I don't even know how many times anymore. The Crown Prince smiled gently. Brother, let me give you a peaceful life. His tone was calm, almost tender. No longer will you need to fight, he added. You were just a little girl who used to run to me for comfort, weren't you? I turned slowly toward Priya. Her hands trembled. Brother, weren't you fighting for the Empire and its people? She asked quietly, her voice barely holding steady. At one time, I thought so too. What do you mean? I believed I was fighting for the greater good, for Taunia, for His Majesty the Emperor, and for the poor people of the land. But that was an illusion. The truth is, the Empire was irrelevant to me. So were the people. How could I possibly love millions of faceless souls I couldn't even see with my own eyes? Priya clenched her fists tightly. The Saintists, the Beast King, and even the leaders of the four great families, we all used each other. They sought their wealth and power while I pursued a single purpose. It was the same even when I became a vessel. Had I not possessed unique abilities, they wouldn't have followed me. The Crown Prince closed his eyes, ending his words with a faint smile. "Priya," I called out. The giant's body was nearly completely out of the portal now. "Understood." Priya's resolve hardened as she nodded. I flared my wings and soared upward, extending my left hand. A crimson bolt of lightning shot out, ensnaring the flying monsters that had been closing in on us. With a clench of my hand, their bodies crumpled into compact masses of flesh and bone before plummeting to the ground. Finally, the giant's feet emerged from the portal. It was massive, over 50 meters tall, like a living skyscraper. The black giant's titanic body slowly began to descend. I gripped Bifrost and shot forward like an arrow. Dozens of tendrils erupted from its skin, writhing toward me. I slashed with my sword, cutting through them relentlessly. The blade of Bifrost carved a path straight through the oncoming tentacles. "Now!" I shouted. Priya raised her sword of light high and swung downward. The golden blade extended outward, slicing cleanly through the giant's forehead without meeting any resistance, as though its skin had been made of soft tofu. Boom! There was no sound, just light. In a single strike, it surged upward, cleaving through the giant from head to toe. Chaos Core has returned to its boundary. With that one blow, the boss monster, nearly level 300, vanished. Particles of light scattered into the air. The massive body of the giant disintegrated into a cloud of shimmering light particles, scattering across the battlefield. I descended slowly, still holding Priya. It was finally over. The falling debris from the shattered portal evaporated into dust, vanishing entirely. Meanwhile, the monsters battling the heroes on the ground froze mid-action. Their bodies collapsed into dark sludge, flowing away through the city's drainage systems. "Is it over?" Priya's voice was trembling, her disbelief mirroring my own. "We've stopped the first wave," I replied calmly, but cautiously. The portal remained open, but for now, the city had a reprieve. At least the immediate threat was gone. I flapped my wings and gently descended, landing in the palace courtyard. Thud. My boots sunk slightly into the soil of a flower bed as I touched down. Priya followed shortly after, stumbling slightly as she set foot on the ground. "Han!" Jenna came running toward us, her face pale and her leather armor smeared with blood and soot. She'd clearly been through her own grueling battles. Behind her, Velkist approached with measured steps, his expression calm, but tinged with exhaustion. Reaching into my inventory, I pulled out a recovery potion and drained it in one go. Glug, glug. I took a moment to survey my surroundings. The city beyond the palace walls was engulfed in flames. Streets and buildings burned in an infernal blaze, casting an eerie orange glow over the area. Heroes stumbled back towards the palace, some dragging injured comrades while others carried the bodies of the fallen. "Tch, still as weak as ever." A familiar voice rang out. A young man clad in jet-black armor stepped forward. Halcyon Cyros, now in his humanoid form. "Watch your mouth, you arrogant wretch," growled a fiery red-haired girl, Schuttenberg, also in her humanoid form. It seemed their clash had ended in a temporary truce. Halcyon turned towards the palace and raised his spear, pointing it directly at the prince. "You'll be dead before the next descent begins. Count on it." The prince remained seated on the throne, resting his chin lazily on his hand, as if entirely unconcerned. "Han, I can no longer intervene directly. While I can keep the other two ancient beings from interfering, you must deal with him yourself." "I already know," I replied, gripping Bifrost firmly. This floor, the 80th floor, wouldn't end until the prince was defeated. That much was clear. "Prepare for battle." Clink! Weapons were drawn, their sharp edges glinting ominously in the firelight. All the heroes around me raised their arms, pointing them at the prince. The faintest hint of a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "So, you've managed to stop the first wave?"
Stop it! Schuttenberg clicked her tongue in frustration, her fiery red hair swaying as she strode towards the prince with anger written on her face. Why didn't you do anything? If you had stepped in, things would have been different. Were you just trying to look important while we fought? Disappointing, another voice chimed in. A crimson-haired boy, Lantia, stepped forward, his expression cold. Are you reneging on our pact? We lent you our strength to break the cycle. Wasting the first opportunity like this goes against everything we agreed. A pact? The prince murmured, his tone indifferent. You swore to grant us liberation, Lantia pressed, his voice rising slightly. But the actions you just took are a betrayal of that promise. There's still another chance. If you want to avoid death, you'd better do it right this time. We'll lend you our power again, just finish it once and for all. Schluck! A wet, slicing sound echoed through the courtyard. Huh? Lanthia froze mid-sentence, his eyes wide with shock. The prince's bandaged hand was buried deep in Lantia's chest, having pierced straight through his ribcage. Splurt! As the prince withdrew his hand, something wet and glistening dangled from his fingers. A heart, still beating faintly. You! Lantia let out a strangled gasp. Crunch! With an almost casual motion, the prince crushed the heart in his hand. Lantia crumpled to the ground like a broken doll, his life extinguished in an instant. Schuttenberg stumbled back, her expression one of pure disbelief. What have you done? She choked out.
The prince didn't answer. He raised his hand again. Boom! A sharp explosion echoed as Schuttenberg's body crumpled to the ground, her head severed cleanly from her shoulders. Her bloodied corpse lay lifeless, sprawled across the dirt. With calm precision, the prince shook off the blood on his hand, as if it were nothing more than an inconvenience. This, he said, his voice unwavering, is liberation. Chapter 278. It's tiring to mingle with old folks. The prince chuckled as he looked down at the remains of Lantia and Schuttenberg. The two corpses, missing both head and heart, occasionally spasmed, spurting blood intermittently. Ancient beings don't die easily. Halcyon narrowed his eyes. Frios turned to face us. I thought I'd die of annoyance. Liberation, revenge, there's a limit to how much they can chatter into my ears. Without a moment's hesitation, the prince attacked his own allies. What is this guy's goal? They borrowed the prince's power to escape the shackles of sacrifice and achieve revenge or liberation. But this one moved in a completely opposite direction. While his subordinates were slaughtered, he didn't use his power properly. Even when the imperial capital fell, he remained in the palace in silence. Now he had even dealt with the two ancient beings who lent him strength. Was it the destruction of Taunia he desired, or revenge against Tel for making him like this? If neither, then... It's finally quiet, Frios said, extending his right hand backward. The space twisted, forming a vortex of dimensions. I'm tired, he murmured. In his golden eyes was an overwhelming sense of ennui, of killing and of being killed. He reached into the vortex, and with a blinding flash of light, drew forth a sword devoid of any distinctive traits. Oh, before that, the prince turned around, looking back. There lay the regenerating remains of the two corpses. Even without head and heart, they hadn't died. I'd better finish the cleanup. Before the ancient beings could fully regenerate, the prince moved first. In a flash, he grabbed them by the collars and swung his arm. Boom! The two bodies were launched like cannonballs, their target the black hole in the sky. The two ancient beings became mere dots, sucked into the hole. You wretched! Halcyon bared his fangs. Warning! Despair begins to descend. Boom! The sky trembled violently. The second descent began immediately. Having repelled the first incursion, there should have been some respite. Only one reason came to mind. He offered them as sacrifices. Priya stepped forward. Your Highness, what have you done? As you can see, I've summoned the second fragment. No matter how powerful I am, I'm no god. 1,000 to 1 odds are unfair, don't you think? I've merely evened the scales, Priya. For something so trivial. It's not trivial. Priya's eyes darkened. Do you want to die? If you want to stop me, take my head. Priya turned to look at me. Though she said nothing, I understood her meaning.
I slowly started moving. Crash! The transparent barrier that had been blocking the prince and I shattered into pieces. Simultaneously, "Arr!" From beyond the hole, screams echoed once more. I pressed my ear. "Are you listening?" "I hear you. We'll handle the prince. Hold them off. The master will help." From afar, Roderick nodded. Soon, fragments began to fall again from the hole. 931, level 108, shards of despair. One of the shard series, they resembled sharp crystals. As they fell to the ground, they gradually transformed into monstrous shapes. Random traits activated. Despair begins hyper-evolution. Traits, hardening and corruption. Hardening, which physically reinforced their skin, could be countered by imbuing weapons with magical properties. But corruption was the real problem. It resurrected fallen heroes as monsters, like zombies. 1028, level 53, corrupted goblins. I murmured once more. If any fallen heroes exist among them, burn their corpses at all costs. Fine. Click. The communication cut off. I took a deep breath and gripped the hilt of Bifrost. Danger. Black Prince. Frios Al Ragnar. Level unknown. A name tag floated above him. Even the system now recognized him as an enemy. I stepped forward slowly. "Opa, what should we—" "I take Priya and find a safe place. Step in when the time is right." "Got it. Just wait a little." The two of them carried Priya and moved away. Once I confirmed they were out of sight, I turned my head to face forward. Standing right in front of me was a young man wrapped in crimson bandages. Han Israt. What? This is the end. I suppose it is. Halkian's form dissolved into mist, and then, zap! Dark crimson lightning erupted from my entire body. Han, 6-star, enters demonization state. Shh! The fragile human flesh was replaced by dragon scales. Hot blood surged through my veins like a tidal wave. Now, at last, I could feel it, the overwhelming power coursing within me. I pointed Bifrost at him. Skill, Black Sword of Defiance activated. The blade was shrouded in obsidian mist, an immense gravitational energy capable of distorting even space-time. If I forgot to adjust its weight, the ground beneath me would collapse in an instant. "Do you know what I desire?" The prince smirked slyly. "Not interested." I kicked off the ground and swung my sword. Crash! The sound of something bursting. A pressure of several thousand tons slammed into him. Frios's body was hurled at tremendous speed, smashing through 2 watchtowers before crashing into the ground. "It's not over yet." I extended my left hand toward him. 10,000 times! Bang! The earth collapsed further. A crater several meters wide formed in an instant. I rotated my left hand. Numerous gravity orbs formed behind me and surged toward the prince. Then I aimed Bifrost at him. The blade extended dozens of meters, piercing the crater's center. Through the smoke and thundering sound, I heard laughter. "It's my turn now?" Before I could process what happened, my body was embedded in the thick outer wall of the Imperial Palace. The golden radiance of his blade swept through the air, obliterating everything in its path. I barely had time to move before 5 slashes cut through my entire body indiscriminately. Even the near-invulnerable defenses of the black dragon scales were no better than paper. Blood spurted from severed arteries, shooting out like fountains. Each slash had struck a vital point with surgical precision. "This much?" Halkian's voice whispered in my ear. "Won't kill the Dragonbane." I stretched out my right hand, gripping his collar tightly. Thunk! A single head up. The prince staggered back. "That hurts!" I followed up with a punch to his abdomen. I could feel his stomach and intestines tear apart. Crack! I grabbed his neck and twisted it violently. The prince's head turned a full 180 degrees before his body crumpled to the ground. I immediately picked up Bifrost, intended to drive it through his heart. Thud! A silver blade flashed, severing my right arm at the shoulder. The dismembered arm, adorned with sharp claws and scales, flew into the air, spraying blood everywhere. It looked less human and more like a beast's limb. "It doesn't matter," I muttered, driving my left fist into the prince's face. At the same time, I moved the muscles in my severed shoulder. Crack! Instantaneously, my right arm regenerated. "I'm tired of this." Boom!
Another punch landed squarely on his face, driving his head deep into the ground. Of killing and being killed. Over and over I pounded him, bones shattered and blood sprayed in all directions. Boom! Something sent my body flying. I slid several meters across the ground before regaining my footing. Physical attacks weren't working. Any other monster would have died 10 times over, but the prince didn't even show a scratch. His body regenerated as if nothing had happened, no matter how much damage was inflicted. I opened my right hand. Bifrost, lying far away, was pulled back into my grasp. Frios Al Ragnar activates Imperial Swordsmanship, Sky. I leaped high into the air. At that moment, an invisible shockwave swept through where I had just stood. Boom! Boom, boom! The shockwave annihilated everything within dozens of meters. Buildings and walls crumbled like sandcastles, leaving destruction in their wake. Unbelievable. What part of this could even be called swordsmanship? The prince had merely lifted his sword and swung it downward. Yet that alone was enough to collapse an entire section of the Imperial Palace. Frios Al Ragnar activates Imperial Swordsmanship, Sky. Frios Al Ragnar activates Imperial Swordsmanship, Sky. Frios Al Ragnar activates Imperial Swordsmanship, Sky. I ran along the palace walls, evading the range of his attacks. Everywhere I moved, Frios followed, slashing his sword and unleashing more devastating shockwaves. Boom! 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 A towering spire crumbled like a toy. Thankfully, Roderick had already evacuated the heroes outside. If they had stayed here, dozens or even hundreds of them would have been massacred by now. Should I engage him head-on? No, wait. Geek! A group of goblins emerged near the walls. Their green skin was cracked, resembling hardened bark, one of the random traits, hardening, which made their skin tougher than steel. Begone! Whoosh! The goblin horde was obliterated in a single swing. Not even their corpses remained. The current situation. I continued circling the prince, assessing the battlefield quickly. Outside the palace, the heroes had fortified their position using magical constructs and were holding their ground. Priya was likely among them. Han, should I try sending their leader back like before? Priya's voice came through, probably using communication magic. I can't help this time. I understand. I'll do it myself. Then go for it. Crash! A nearby skyscraper toppled. How long do you intend to run? Just a little longer, I muttered under my breath. Dwack, dwack! An arrow pierced Frios's back. Dwack, dwack, dwack! A volley of arrows followed, turning him into a pincushion. Finally, time to mess him up, said a voice. Emerging behind Frios, Velkist swung his sword. A white flash of energy cleaved through Frios's waist, slicing him cleanly in two. Frios Al Ragnar activates Imperial Swordsmanship, Earth. Velkist! I know. Velkist deftly retreated just as a massive explosion erupted near Frios. Whew! Just in time. Jenna descended beside me. Velkist joined us shortly afterwards. No matter how many times I see you like this, it's unsettling. Velkist muttered, glancing at me. Halcyon, what is it? How do we kill him? Halcyon paused before replying. That guy is in a state similar to an ancient being. Meaning? There are two methods. First, aim for his vital point. And where is that? I don't know. That's practically useless advice. What's the second method? Fight until he stays dead. Fantastic. I clicked my tongue. At that moment, thunk, 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 the arrows lodged in Frios's body were pushed out as he regenerated once more.
Chapter 279. Boom. With a thunderous roar, a streak of light sliced through the air. The target was the prince's left chest. Jenna's arrow, imbued with 2 high-level engravings, was already akin to a strategic weapon. The arrow, which closed a 10-meter distance in an instant, pierced the prince's heart. Am I next? Velkist stomped his foot. His body shot to the left, a white flash following closely behind his back. The power of vibration. This was a special effect that occurred when the white dragon's blood reached a certain stage. Kerrang!
Velkist's sword blade trembled violently. Impressive. The prince's severed upper body floated into the air. However, before even a second could pass, space twisted and the severed upper and lower body reattached. The gaping hole in his heart also healed instantly. Now it was my turn. There was no need to get close. With just one swing of the sword, the prince's entire body shattered. Boom! A massive explosion erupted, destroying the garden. "You're quite strong," I muttered in a low voice. "Fall back." I leapt back with all my strength. A formless shockwave burst forth, sweeping through the spot where we had just been. He's not particularly strong. The gap in power wasn't that significant. In fact, from a certain perspective, we were overwhelming him. The prince counterattacked every time he was hit, but compared to beings like Halcyon or Asinus, whom we had faced in the mental realm, his power and speed were laughably inferior. However, there was one crucial difference. He couldn't die. Not even with the black sword condensed with gravity thousands of times stronger than normal. Not even with an arrow that could pierce any monster's weak point. Not even with a wave sword that could tumble matter itself. We couldn't kill him. This is a headache. Looking around, the once splendid Golden Palace was no longer visible. The garden was a ruin, the gates shattered, and the jade throne prepared for the emperor had been smashed into fragments and scattered everywhere. Amid the ruins of the palace, we continued exchanging relentless attacks. 2,835 level 53 corrupted goblins. The imperial capital was already more than half destroyed. The aftermath of the battle and the mountain of monster corpses made it hard to find an intact spot. The heroes, centered around Roderick, continued their defense by using the fragments of destroyed buildings as makeshift barriers. All we could do was buy time to keep the prince from reaching Priya. "Did you find anything?" "No, I've already circled the area 3 times. There doesn't seem to be anything, Han." Kishasha's urgent voice came through. I had tasked her with reconnaissance. There was a chance that somewhere there might be a hidden object like a goddess statue. Just like the weapon we found on the 20th floor, there might be something here capable of killing the boss. But even after 30 minutes of reconnaissance, there had been no news. This is infuriating. Back in Niflheim, the challenges were even more intense. Stronger enemies appeared, and monsters poured in by tens of thousands. But back then, there were also tools to deal with the situation. By following the prescribed path across the field, I activated objects that provided buffs, exponentially increasing the hero stats. However, this mission in Taunia was completely grueling. The difficulty of pick-me-up was notorious, but even so, there was always one consistent rule. Regardless of the account or floor level, there was always a method to clear a stage. No matter how difficult, it was still a game. If there was no way to clear it, it wouldn't be a game. Mutmura, this doesn't seem possible, but why doesn't he die? Bug detector MGXZ. Is this a bug? Feels like they never intended anyone to clear floors above 80. These mobile game companies do this all the time, tricking their players. Malang 44. All the players who cleared it, like Loki, are probably admin accounts. Negative comments filled the right side of the streaming window. Some of them even speculated it was a bug. Any ideas? Velkis lowered his sword and asked. I searched through my memories. The countless mission types I had analyzed during my time as a master flashed through my mind. Every mission had its rules. Did I overlook something? Even after reviewing everything from the beginning of this mission to now, nothing stood out. This guy. Boom, I swung my sword downward. The clash of sword pressure and shockwaves erupted into a deafening noise. Is he really just a bug? I raised my hand to my ear and spoke. Kishasha. Yeah? Are you sure there's nothing in the field? Even the smallest thing is fine. There are things, but they're all unusable. Show me. Hold on. Click. A series of images appeared in the corner of my vision. This was visual sharing, a high-level communication magic. I examined the photos. Amid the rubble of collapsed buildings, shattered goddess statues were buried. The situation was the same in all the photos. There wasn't a single intact statue. The arrangement looked unnaturally deliberate, as if someone had intentionally destroyed them. Ha! I let out a hollow laugh. You meddled with the field. Who knows? Frios smiled enigmatically. Monsters can't tamper with the field. Both heroes and monsters were forbidden from interfering with the environment. That was an absolute rule, or so I thought. Could that rule have been broken? If someone at Frios's level or higher had broken that rule, or if someone like Rantia or Schutenberg had meddled behind the scenes. Either way, if my assumption was correct, I flung my sword downward. What's the plan? We stop fighting. This wasn't a fair battle anymore. I spat bloody saliva onto the ground. So, this is the grand strategy you came up with. Disappointing. Your death is inevitable. The only thing changing now is how pathetically you die. And why do you think so? I turned my gaze to the right side of my view. Among the flood of messages in the chat, a familiar phrase caught my attention. AZ. Cirrus, faceplant, error, lick. I had already realized this, but the stream was being watched by all sorts of people. Some of them were far from ordinary. If this stage isn't legitimate, tens of thousands of players were watching this. The game's reputation itself was at stake. There was no way they would let it slide. Now, loading. The sky darkened suddenly. I let out a heavy sigh. Now, loading. The sky darkened again. I let out a heavy sigh. It was as if time had stopped. The objects around me became motionless. Even Velkist, who had been glaring at me moments ago, and Jenna, who had tilted her head in confusion, were completely still. The flames engulfing the capital and the rampaging monsters also froze. System recovery in progress. A server error has disconnected your session. Please wait. It was a sight both unfamiliar and familiar to me. Emergency access. Verifying password. Password. Ding! A message popped up along with the sound effect. Code authorization Alpha 1.
Access verified. Opening alternative route. At the edge of the field, the transparent barrier began to crack as though fractured glass was spreading across it. I didn't want to rely on their help. If they were going to resort to such tactics, I had no choice. They won't let us clear this. At most, they might only adjust the balance, but even that would suffice. Garbage game. What's going on, LOL? Crashed again. 80th floor and it's crashing, LOL? Server quality is amazing. Mikucha Brave 7. This game is a total joke. Within Mobius, time had stopped, but on Earth, time was still flowing normally. The chat window quickly filled with mocking comments. The prince turned his gaze away as though sharing the same view as I did. There are quite a few spectators outside, it seems, he murmured quietly. Perhaps they're here to watch the play's conclusion. Say whatever you want. Is breaking the script enough of a reason for them to step in? Crack. The barrier's fractures became even more pronounced. The codename was Alpha 1, the rank directly below Alpha 0, the game's lead director. What's happening? A voice I shouldn't have heard echoed in my mind. I doubted my ears. Everything around me suddenly stopped. The heroes, the monsters, they're all frozen. Is this part of the mission? Han, are you safe? Priya. Speak. Are you okay? There's no issue on my end. Come to where I am. I cut off the communication. The prince in front of me wore an inexplicable smile. Even Halcyon isn't responding. Even transcendent beings who had surpassed the limits of life couldn't resist this interruption. Only I, a player from Earth, and the prince, the target of the interference, could move here, just as it had been when Tel dealt with El Cid. Yet just now, Priya, an ordinary NPC of this world, had contacted me. Is this your doing? Han! I looked to my side. Priya was rushing toward me, breathing heavily. Her elegant silver dress was soaked with blood and dust. Your Highness! Her face hardened as her eyes met the prince's. Is this all part of your plan too? You don't even call me brother anymore. That is because of your Highness. Because I betrayed Taunia, is it? Priya bit her lip. I thought your Highness was someone who loved Taunia more than anyone. That was your mistake, Priya. I have never loved Taunia.
The prince pointed his golden sword forward. At last, the conditions have been met. Conditions? A hole has opened in the heavens. Thanks to offering up those 2 old men as sacrifices, its size has grown significantly. Even the interference of the spectators is now reaching us. It's not a bad setup. And the next sacrifice is on its way. Something was wrong. I twitched my index finger. The Bifrost lying on the ground leaped into my right hand. AZ, balance, lick adjustment. The fractures in the wall grew wider and more pronounced. The prince twirled his golden sword. Priya, did I ask you why I fight? It is for a single piece of land, a place where golden fields of wheat stretch endlessly, with a small house nestled among them. A place where I don't have to fight or suffer anyone's interference. Your Highness, I don't understand. The glow around the prince's sword grew stronger. The crimson bindings that wrapped around his body crumbled into dust. 17 lifetimes, thousands of battles, tens of thousands of drops of blood and tears. It was only then that I understood. What are you planning? Frios' eyes ignited with a brilliant flame. Behold, Priya, this is the true Dimension Sword. Whoosh! A golden radiance transformed into flame, engulfing the prince's entire body and surging high into the sky. Han! I clutched my sword in my left hand and slammed my foot into the ground, but an invisible wall blocked me, as expected. Damn it! Did this bastard's power extend to tampering with the system itself? I turned my gaze to the right. AZ, Saris, faceplant. A virtual keyboard appeared as I flicked my right hand. Hurriedly, I began typing. Loki 799. Alpha 0, stop this! The chat flooded with messages, pushing my words further and further up the list. The prince pointed his blazing golden sword forward. Something was starting to emerge from that very spot. Access route complete. Balance adjustment operations initiated. Responsible parties, fulfill your assigned roles. Crash. Glass-like shards scattered everywhere. From the opening, a man in black suit emerged, stepping forward calmly. I am Alpha 1. Under the orders of the company, I have... You're from Server 1? Yes, I... The prince's smile deepened. Let's start measuring coordinates, shall we?
Chapter 280. Bang! When I opened my eyes, a sharp pain pierced my head. I found myself sprawled on the ground. Regaining my senses, I pushed myself up with both hands and carefully straightened my body. A biting cold, as sharp as a winter wind, enveloped me. I tried to recall what had happened. It was during the mission on the 80th floor. The main boss of Tawinia, the Crown Prince, had drawn the intervention of headquarters. At that moment, Frios had swung his dimensional sword, triggering chaos as if he had planned it all along. If he had intended to fight us, things wouldn't have unfolded this way. He had manipulated the field in advance, betrayed the Transcendence, and even involved the forces of headquarters. Everything was meticulously calculated. First, I checked my condition. Fortunately, there were no major injuries. Even Bifrost remained securely fastened at my waist. I could still fight if an enemy appeared at any moment. Where is this? I surveyed my surroundings. An unfamiliar landscape stretched before me, an all-encompassing darkness, as if black crayons had been scribbled across a vast canvas. I stood atop an endless expanse, unable to discern its limits. It felt like a dream, utterly devoid of reality. Dimension 0000. A holographic message materialized before me. Dimension 0000. Upon reading the words on the screen, I understood where I was. Server 1, or at least somewhere close to it. I didn't expect to arrive this way. I took a slow, deep breath, trying to maintain my composure no matter what happened. Tap. A crisp sound of footsteps echoed. Drawing my sword with a soft swish, I moved toward the source of the sound. Standing there, gazing blankly at me, was Priya. Han, are you injured? No. Come to me, this place isn't safe. Priya nodded and hurried toward me. Her golden eyes betrayed her unease. What is this place? Who knows? I clicked my tongue. If I had to describe this place, only one word came to mind. Space.
But this wasn't space in a normal sense. The stars glimpsed amidst the darkness were shrouded in shadow, as though we were dead. It seems we've managed to escape. I pointed my sword toward the direction of the voice. From within the veil of shadows emerged a man. Dressed in silver robes, he wore a serene smile, a handsome youth. It was none other than Frios Ragnar, crown prince of the empire. His body, usually wrapped in crimson bandages, now appeared normal, as it had during the promotion ceremony on the 4th floor. I kept my sword raised, scanning the situation once more. No contact with Halcyon, no sign of Jenna, Velkist, or the other heroes. There were only 3 of us here, Priya, Frios, and me. I didn't say I wanted a fight. I didn't come here to battle you. Lower your sword. The Crown Prince smiled gently. I sneered. And yet you instigated this chaos. If we had stayed there, one of us, either you or I, would have certainly died. Just puppets dancing in Tell's palm. That I couldn't deny. The mission wouldn't end until either the heroes were wiped out or the boss was killed. Even so, this man was far too suspicious. We don't have much time. I managed to tear through the barrier, but we'll soon be ejected. It must be resolved before then. Resolved? What are you trying to resolve? Frios began to explain. This place is called the Boundary, the end of the multi-dimensional universe Mobius, and the wall where it meets another universe. Frios gazed upward. Above us, infinite darkness stretched without end. It's the main server of this game, and also where it all began. The main server? I know you call this world a game. You are the master's pawn, a hero, and I am your counterpart, the monster. Priya is a neutral force, an NPC. The 3 of us are nothing more than playthings, aren't we? Frios chuckled faintly. I replayed his words in my mind. This is Server 1, the core region to be exact. The Crown Prince turned his back on us and began walking leisurely. Follow me. There's something I want to show you. His figure receded into the distance. I didn't foresee this scenario. I bit my lip. I had long known he wasn't an ordinary monster, but to break the rules like this? Shouldn't we go? Priya whispered, looking at me. I want to know as well why my brother has changed like this. Headquarters would be in an uproar. Not only has a mere monster escaped the field, but it has also accessed the core data of the game. And all of this is happening in front of tens of thousands of viewers. If his goal was to sabotage the game, he was halfway to succeeding. Han, Priya called my name. I sighed deeply and began to move. All right. There was no point staying here. I followed Priya and the Crown Prince. Priya, he spoke without stopping. Yes? Do you remember what I taught you as a child? Mobius is composed of countless overlapping dimensions. Good. Tawinia is just a minuscule part of the universe. Now then. The Crown Prince halted. He looked upward with distant eyes. If 100 million dimensions were to simultaneously collapse, what would be the cause? An unknown enemy invading Mobius? Why would they invade Mobius? Priya's expression hardened. Frios continued in a low voice. I didn't come here just to achieve my goal, but I had to know. Only then can one choose their fate. Fate. Priya averted her gaze. Above, below, left, and right, there was nothing but darkness. Amidst it, faint gray specks flickered. All living things eventually returned to nothing, from the smallest blade of grass to humans to the vast oceans and skies, stars, and even the universe itself. The Crown Prince resumed walking but stopped again. He looked upward with distant eyes. Our home, Mobius, its time is up. What do you mean? The Crown Prince turned to me. Han, you understand, don't you? Entropy. They call it that on Earth. I vaguely recalled the concept. Entropy, a term from thermodynamics. It referred to the inevitable loss of energy during every conversion. Is that why you brought up Earth? Thanks for reminding me. I still remember him sitting on the throne and spinning a globe of Earth. Of course, your world will take billions of years to perish, but not ours. Do you finally understand what Tell has done? Do you grasp the cost? Frios swung his sword. Crash! The intangible wall surrounding us shattered. Beyond it, 256,831,598,409,136,000 fragment of chaos level 113. 349,105,668,989,691 fragment of despair level 108. 681,358,341,492,967 fragment of resentment level 121. The numbers spiraled endlessly. 953,813,914,138,193,812,409,101 crystal of chaos level 322. Before our eyes lay infinite chaos. Frio spoke solemnly. They are called harvesters. They hail from dimensions far beyond ours. Their goal? To restore Mobius to its original flow. The Crown Prince sheathed a sword. The fragments and crystals disappeared as if they had never been.
Priya, when you were 8, I gave you a puppy. It didn't survive the month. Do you remember what you said? I wanted to bring it back to life. Do you think that was the right thing? Priya bowed her head, unable to answer. Take your time. I, too, needed it. I clenched my jaw. The universe's lifespan is over. All the galaxies, stars, and light are extinguished. Mobius, now a wasteland of void, reduced to zero entropy. Was Tel forcing it to reverse? Tel and Icar, twin goddesses of Mobius, might have reached a different outcome had they been less naive. I closed my eyes. The deluge of information made my head throb. Through the chaos, a face emerged in my memory. There's no hope for this world. It was Ceres, her hollow eyes speaking those words. She knows, which explains her sudden shift and why she had tried to push me away. Tel's objective isn't conquering Earth or gaining power. The twin goddesses, Tel and Icar, represent purity and benevolence, but their naivety cost us dearly. Frio smirked bitterly, resuming his stride. Priya stumbled after him. How absurd! This mobile game was, in truth, a living world. Its purpose? To reverse the destruction of a dead universe. And the reason? The universe had simply reached its end. I anticipated as much, but this was too much. The universe's fate. I let out a hollow laugh. Survival in a game was one thing, but this scale was beyond comprehension. I clenched my fist tightly, following the Crown Prince. At the field's edge, someone stood. Neither Frios nor Priya. A girl dressed in pure white, long black hair cascading down to her waist. She stared vacantly ahead. She resembles. No, it wasn't just a resemblance. It was her. Yet the girl exuded no life, like a wax doll. This is Icar, Tel's younger sister, the server computer for Pick Me Up. The girl remained unmoving. The Crown Prince smiled bitterly. His time is almost up. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.